Welcome to the Connectable Podcast.
The Connectable Podcast starts in 3, 2, 1.
Once again, Deb is not here, which is not a surprise. Like I'm used to carrying this show. Like I do all the editing, I do all the post work, I set the meetings up. That's not true. She sets the meetings up. I initiate the invites. So that being said, she's not here again. And I would say it's just because she had stuff to do, but it's also the latest podcast we've ever recorded. And if you've listened to our show before, you know that when we record at 8:00 at night, she is already starting to doze off. So,
oh, no.
Oh, it's true. You think I'm joking? That's a common theme.
Wow.
She literally holds in the yawns until we stop recording, and then she lets out this like massive lion-sized roar of a yawn. I'm not joking. Ask her. And so anyways, we have a real podcaster, and I just want to say this, Deb, if you're listening, which I know you're not because I don't think you even subscribe to our show. That being said, if you look at who's here today, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see that this man has headphones. He has a mic that he can't knock over, Deb, like you normally do. This is what it's supposed to look like. So hopefully we can record this guy again, but I'm already jealous. He's a designer, he's a podcaster, and
Oh my gosh.
Based on some of his recent Instagram pictures, he might become a male model. I don't know. Trent Ellerman, what's going on, man?
Dude, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, man. That intro was legendary. I also know Deb, and shout out Deb, love you wherever you're listening from, if you are listening. I love all the smack talk. I am here for it, and you are too kind, man. I try to dabble in all of those things. I guess I'm just a jack of all trade, but a master of none.
Yeah. Well, hey, I've gotten some design work from you, and it was fantastic. So I think you're getting close to being a master of that for sure.
Dude, thank you. I really feel like just with the whole design thing, I always tell myself like I'm not creative, because I don't feel like it. But hey, man, I appreciate it. I try to break beyond those boundaries all the time, I guess.
Yeah, man, for sure. And I want to say this too. So we'll jump into this in a second, but yeah, I just want to say that I've listened to your podcast. We've had some conversations in the past. Like it's funny, we don't really know each other super well, but we have had some extended periods of time where we've had a chance to talk. I'm so glad that you have this type of humor that you have, because I knew I could make fun. I knew you knew Deb. I knew I could make fun of her. It's what we normally do on this show. I've done that to people that I don't know very well, and they look at me like, I can't believe you just spent 2 minutes saying what you just did. Like, no, that's how I joke. It's fine. She gets it. If I didn't like Deb, I wouldn't joke with her like that. So that being said, I was so happy that you're gonna be on the show, because I'm like, I know Trent has a similar sense of humor. And
totally.
And you and your co-host have a similar dynamic. So I'm like, this will be perfect.
Dude, yeah. I always tell people, I'll come back to what you said about us not knowing each other, because I regret that. I'll come back to that in a second. Yep. But I will say, I always tell people in the office or anybody who like I cross paths with, because like you said, not everybody understands this type of humor, but everybody always says like, if they'll come to a crossroads where they're like, yeah, you joke with me, you give me a hard time, I don't really know where you stand with me or whatever. And I'm always like, listen, if I joke with you, it means like we're cool. Like the harder I joke with you, it means the more equity that I have, the more I enjoy your company. If I ever cross your path and I'm just like, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. Dude, we're not tight. We're not good. It's like we're barely acquaintances. So if I joke and I give you a hard time, we're super close. But in regards to us not knowing each other, I feel like even just in our history, like we both, shared a workplace for a while. And I feel like it just was a matter of timing. Like, and it really was just by circumstance. Like we did share a lot of the same friends, and a lot of our circles of people were super close, but we just happened to miss each other with like timing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I felt the same way, and that's usually how we kick off this show when we have a new guest on. I explain how we're connected to the guest, because it's called Connectable.
Sure.
We're trying to just make our audience get connected with the guest, and vice versa. But it is funny, because that's one of those things where we have a bunch of common connections, and it just happened to be where our paths didn't line up that much. In fact, when I left, when I stopped working at Capital, you kind of slid in behind me and took on some of the roles that I was doing, although your skill set was completely different and they were able to tap into something very different with you. It kind of filled the same role. And, I remember that when we were setting up for the character combine, we spent basically an entire day together driving all over the city, trying to deliver and pick up equipment. And I remember at that moment, I'm like, oh, I like this dude a lot, because before that, I'm like, I couldn't say that I liked you and I couldn't say I disliked you. I just didn't know you.
No,
like,
totally.
To be real with you, I'm like, yeah, he seems cool, but I have no idea. He could be a douche and I have no idea. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. And honestly, man, I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of people who hold that opinion about me. They're like, yeah, that guy's a douche. And I'm like, yeah, you got it. You nailed it. You're not far off. But yeah, I do remember that day. We did happen to I think we had to like go pick up like a moving truck or something like that. And we had really good conversations just about like life. And I think we talked about music and rap and just similarities in life. And that was a cool moment. I always kind of, got who you were just through like a secondhand, like I was really close with Joe Crenshaw. I know you and Joe were really close for a while. Yeah. And, your sister was my small group leader for a while, like when I was really young. And, actually your wife was my small group leader too. It's so weird. I'm like making all these connections now in my head. It was almost like we were always just like 1 degree of separation away from like really hitting it off and like being close. It was just like a weird timing thing where we just missed each other. But yeah, I agree with you. I was glad we got to share that truck ride that day.
No, it was fun, man. Yeah. And I do think it was I do remember the hip hop connection for sure. We had a lot of conversations and we started having that conversation. I'm like, well, he probably likes music and knows a little bit about hip hop. And then we started talking more. It's like, oh, you really have a passion for it and love it at a deeper level. I'm like, we could have been closer friends at some point. But like you said, I think that's just with life, man. Sometimes you just don't quite line up. Yeah. Not for any specific reason. It just doesn't line up. You know what I mean? Yeah, totally. But that's pretty much how we're connected, man. It's just a lot of common connections. And then obviously, you've helped me with some projects recently. Yeah. And, you're, like I said, man, your work is amazing, dude. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the creativity and just the skill and ability. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you're an honest dude and I'm fine with it. I can take criticism. So I'm sure you've seen our logo for this podcast. Yeah. 1 to 10, rate it. Like,
dude, what are you doing to me right now, man?
You can't hurt my feelings. You can't hurt my feelings because I'm not. Here's the thing. I told Rachel before I came on. I said I'm gonna ask him this question because, hey, you know what? I'm not a designer, so it's like how can you hurt my feelings? It's like, hey, it sucks. Okay, I'm not a designer. Like there was no bar. Now, if I was a designer, sure, like you, and then you started, throwing all that smoke my way, sure, it hurt my feelings more. Yeah, 100%. But I have it. Let me see. So I'm looking at it here. Hey, bro, I think that we all are brothers in Christ. Really? I don't know. It's not my favorite, but you know what? You said, did you make it? I did. And okay. Yeah. Here's the thing, Josh. Here's how I'll say it. Please, you can't hurt my feelings. Here's what I'll say. You not being a designer, you're not trying to be artistic. You're trying to accomplish a goal. Did you accomplish a goal? 100%. You did it. Nailed it, bro. I'm sitting here and I'm like, I know what I'm looking at. I know what you're about. I can gain. You have the differences in colors. You have the connect in one and the able in other. I clearly know what your goal is and what you're trying to accomplish. I can glean what it's about. Bro, nailed it. 100%. I'm with you. That was a very nice, honest criticism. I do appreciate that. And I do feel you're being honest. Like, I'm not going to say you sidestepped the question. It was like not brutally honest, but I see what you were doing and I appreciate that. And I can walk away thinking that it's not good, but it works. Hey, if you're trying to be artistic, here's the thing, man. Like it's with like design, the whole design thing, the longer that like I've done it and have been in this field, like the less it's about like being artistic or like, because there's designers that you have to pay like 10 grand to get out before they even get out of bed, before they even have a conversation. Sure. And like there's like
procedures and like schooling knowledge that you have to get, and like books that you can read on like the theory behind logo crafting. And honest to God, like you don't, in my opinion, I am no master by any means, but I don't think you need that. I think there's a few couple foundations that you can follow and you know, aesthetics that you can try and create and principles. But like outside of that, we're all just trying to create something. You know what I mean? Like we all have the same software. We all have the same like desire for good aesthetics. So what makes me a better designer or judge than somebody else? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's cool.
You're like, yeah, I don't buy it.
Yeah, he's just way better than me. No, I'll tell you the process, man. So here's what happened. So when I started this podcast, I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to figure out some kind of concept or design.
Yeah.
And then my first thought was, I'm gonna go to Fiverr because it's the simplest thing.
100%.
Those jokers sent me back such crap. I'm like, I wasted $25. Why did I do this? Like they sent me 3 concepts. It was awful. And I'm like,
yeah.
And then I started looking around. I was like, oh, you stole a couple of concepts and you just did the exact same thing that this other company did. I'm like, I can't use that. It was like you Google search Connectable or Connection or, you know, those different things.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, you took this design from this company. It's like, I'm not going to use this stuff. So I'm like, well, I might as well not spend any more money and try to do it myself. You know, it's funny. At one point, and this makes no sense, my brother who's listening to this is going to make fun of this because he knows what I'm about to say. At one point, I had a monkey with headphones.
Hey, man.
It looks dope. But then he's like, I don't get it. I'm like, yeah, I don't get it either, but it looks cool, right? He's like, yeah, but it makes no sense. So I still have that art somewhere. I'm saving it.
Sometimes that works though. Sometimes even though it doesn't make sense, I'm trying to think of something like, I don't know. Like I said, everybody thinks that you have to have this greater meaning, but if it looks cool and you can brand it well enough, like, you know, like back in the day when you're wearing a Nike shirt, like the whole check mark thing, I guarantee you, like, when they first were like starting their brand, nobody had any connotation like with this check mark to like what is Nike, what is Adidas, you know, like these 3 lines. And you know, now they have crafted like their whole vision around like all these things. And you know, they have their just do it phrasing, and like the 3 lines mean like the mountains that you blah blah, like it's all just like made up nonsense. Like if you came up with like a monkey with headphones and you think that's dope, bro, run it. Just, hey, go with it. I love it.
See, Jordan and Deb, I told you guys the monkey was dope. So,
hey, bro, don't listen to the haters. If you love it, just do it.
There you go. Well, here's the thing, man. And I've told people this before. If this podcast starts making money, then I'm going to reach out to you to fix our design.
Oh my gosh, bro.
So that's what's going to happen. But
dude,
let me ask you a question though. As a designer, because we've had a couple of people on this podcast that were filmmakers, videographers. Wow. And I always like to ask them, like, when you watch a movie or a TV show, like, has your passion, has your business of videography ruined you when it comes to watching a film or a TV show? So same thing for you. It's a little different, but like when you go out in the streets, right, and you see billboards, you see commercials, you see ads, like has you going like headlong into this world of design, has that ruined, like has it just messed you up? Can you not go anywhere without noticing stuff?
Yeah, I yes. Short answer, yes. Like, and I'm not. This is what I think about when I think about this kind of stuff. You mentioned stuff like that where it's like, you know, you're looking at the menu to a restaurant, or you know, or you talk about like these videographers that watch film and or that, you know, produce films, and then they're watching this other film that might not be well constructed. Nobody likes being next to that guy that's like, oh, they didn't use a wide lens, or like, oh, this font is so bad. Nobody likes like that super pretentious thing. And I used to do that. Like I used to go around and like, this is just for instance, one thing, there's this, nobody's going to know this because it's so ancillary information, but there used to be this font called Wisdom Script. And if you look it up, you could just type it in. If you're listening right now, you could type it in on your phone, type in Wisdom Script font. You're going to pull it up and you're going to recognize it from like In and Out, from like certain ads. Like if they like needed low budget design work done, chances are they use this font. We use it at the church for a while. And everywhere I'd go, I'd be like, oh, Wisdom Script. Oh, lame, blah, blah. And I'm like, and eventually I just started to hear myself and be like, oh, dude, I hate that guy. And that guy's me right now. And so, there's times where like, I'll receive like a flyer, or, you know, like I'll see a billboard. Typically, if you've made it up on a billboard, chances are it's pretty decent artwork, but typically like low budget stuff where it's like a second thought, you know, rather not a second thought was given to it.
Sure.
A flyer, a handout, a card, a birthday card, something. Sometimes I'll look and I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. This is so bad. Like, and I'll start to dissect it. And I just remember I'm being that guy again. And I'm just like, all right, whatever. Sure. I'll come to your little event. I don't care.
I like it. It sounds like it was hinging on that design too. So just if anybody's going to invite Trent to a party, just know you're walking a tightrope with your crappy invite.
Okay. But tell me though, if you receive something, and I'll be honest with you, I'm a sucker for like an unboxing experience. So like if I order something from Amazon, or I'm like super pumped to get like a new piece of equipment or technology or whatever, I am one of those weirdos that I'm like, oh my gosh, the box is like, because, you know, I do the whole, you know, comms department at the church. So I have a hand in picking out the materials that we use for the shirts or the boxes or whatever. So I really do like when something's like boxed well, I'm like, oh, it has a gloss, it's like embossed and it's like glossy, and oh, there's this, that. And like, you know, when we do swag packages, like that's super cool.
Sure.
But if you get something that sucks, you don't want to buy into whatever they're trying to sell you. It's kind of like a subconscious thing. If you get a sucky flyer, it's like, oh, I'm not going to that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, that's what I've told some people before, you know, about books. Like you always hear the phrase, you can't judge a book by its cover. It's like, I definitely do. I definitely
100%.
do. Because if I see a book and it doesn't have a dope cover, I'm like, especially if it's a book about creativity, because I like books about leadership, creativity, and some of those things. If it's a creativity book and the cover sucks, I'm like I can't even buy into what you're saying before I even read a page of the book, because
100%.
the cover doesn't even match what you're trying to talk about.
100%. How many times have you like gone to like Borders or something I remember as a kid, there was Borders and like Barnes and Noble all over the place. And my parents would take me and be like, pick out a book for summer reading. My childhood was dope. It was so much fun. So I was like, okay, I'm going to pick out this book. Yeah. And how many times as just a kid, you're like, you read the title and then you see the cover and you're like, oh, it's just, I don't know. It's just like purple, or it's just one color. Lame, skip. And you go to the next one. Magic Treehouse always had the dopest covers of like traveling through time or dragons or something. I'm like, yes, give me these, all of these.
Oh, 100%. No, I agree with that 100%. Yeah. It's just like, you know, it's one of those, it's a weird thing for me. The design stuff, anything creative, video work, design work, whatever it may be, is just super interesting. It's one of those things where I feel like I would love to have that skill, but I also don't want to put the time in to learn the skill, because I've tried a couple of times. I'm like, oh, this is awful. I do not want to learn, you know, like you said, the theories and everything that goes behind it. Yeah. But, you know, I do have an appreciation for what you guys do. And like, I'm fascinated by it for sure.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why I pay people to help me out.
Dude, 100%. I love doing it. I'm trying to dabble my hand in like video editing now. That's a whole new world. It's so hard because typically graphic design, you're moving with everything and it's just still, it's like on the screen and it's not moving. Video is so different. It's like everything's on a timeline. You have to plan it. I have even a greater respect for people who edit and like shoot. It's next level. So yeah, those guys are way more talented than me.
Oh, they're monsters. Mm-hmm. All right. So do you do the video editing for your podcast? Because you guys have what, 3 cameras?
No. So okay, behind the scenes, pulling the curtain back for all this, I do the video editing and I do the audio editing. So I like edit all of our audio. I add, you know, some like improvements. I cut out the background noise, blah, blah, blah. Some pretty simple stuff. I add compressing and blah, blah, blah. And that's been actually fun to learn, because it's just like, basically that's just a process of improving the quality. Easy, done. Sure. But then with the video, I learned how to do like multicam angles. Mm-hmm. I don't even know how interesting this is, but basically, long story short, our cameras aren't good enough to perform multicam, because like there's a stupid thing called like cinema cameras, and they're like a distinction from like regular DSLRs and stuff like that. Right. And it's basically just a way to increase the cost on these cinema cameras, because like typically your DSLR, I have one right here. This is a Canon 70D right here. This can only film. This can film for a maximum of 30 minutes. Then you have to get up off your seat and then re-hit the button. Cinema cameras can just go for an unlimited amount of time. And since we have an hour podcast, We have to constantly get up, sit down, blah, 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 all this stuff. And if you have 3 cameras doing that at different times, chopping that all together is like a Frankenstein. So it's just, we kind of abandoned that idea and we're just trying to make it a one shot right now. If basically like what you said, if our podcast ever strikes it rich, then we'll invest in better equipment or people to do it for us. But right now we're keeping it simple.
Yeah. Well, I listen to, I'm sure like you listen to a ton of podcasts, and I'll watch some of them on YouTube, and it really is impressive, especially once you get to like these higher level comedy podcasts.
Yeah.
Obviously like Joe Rogan's a huge, massive one, and the setup he has is just incredible, but he's also at a completely different stratosphere than everybody else.
Oh yeah. 100%.
But yeah, I mean, it's cool when you can do that stuff, but it's incredibly time consuming, you know? And I definitely, when we first started podcasting, 2.5 years ago with the Character Combine, I definitely looked into, I went down that like dark rabbit hole of cameras, and, you know, you said the 30-minute max, and is there any way to increase that? And it's like, I started looking at all these pieces of equipment. I'm like, what are you doing, dummy? Like, this stuff is so expensive. You're not going to do this. It's like a nice thought, but you're not going to do it. You know what I mean?
It comes to like a breaking point where it's like, and I talked about this with my co-host Savannah, where it's just like, we're trying to do the small things really great right now, and like highlight the things that we do well. Right. And 100%. If we even make a little money, all of the stuff is going to go back into the podcast to make it better. 100%. Like, we're the last thing to get, or the last people to get paid will be us. Like, if we make even just a livable wage off this, of course, we'll just full-time do that. But like, for the meantime, even if we make pennies, all of that's going to go to improve the podcast. But realistically, right now, we're both working full-time jobs to support families.
Right.
So can we just buy 3 multi-$1,000 cameras? No, of course not. We're going to use the dopey cameras that we have, find workarounds, and then just go from there.
Right. Exactly. Well, I don't know if you wrestle with this. It kind of sounds like you might at certain points, but you know, I have all these grand ideas about what I want it to sound like, what I want it to look like, and, you know, all this crazy stuff that's not necessary at this moment, like you just said.
Yeah.
And then I look at other podcasts that are at similar levels. It's like, oh, what we're doing is already like leaps and bounds beyond that. And that's no offense to anybody else who's doing it.
No, totally.
Just, you know, like, and I even text you when you guys first started your podcast. I'm like, I recognize, like I said, I can take criticism, not a problem. I recognize that you guys were doing certain things way, way better than us. The sound was better. Now I'm gonna be honest, I still don't edit our sound. This is like just straight raw sound. So when you hear this back, just know it was not edited. I don't suck at editing. I just didn't do it. And then, you know, and then the same thing with, you know, with some of the other things that we do. It's like, we just keep it very simple. And then it's like, well, maybe I should, you know, do some more. And then it's like, you listen to some of these other things. I'm like, oh no, this is 100% better than some of these other, you know, but then, but like I said, you always look ahead at the bigger, grander thing, and you compare yourself to that. And then, you know, then I come back down to reality. I'm like, you know what, we're doing good with, like you said, let's focus on making the dynamic between me and Deb really solid. The content good and all that. And then, you know, the rest of it will take care of itself. So, so how long have you guys been, I mean, I obviously know the answer to this, but for everybody who doesn't know, how long have you guys been podcasting? Why did you start podcasting, and how did you guys make that connection?
Yeah. So me and my co-host Savannah Carreno, shout out, we do a podcast called The Juice podcast. And we've been doing it for, there's like 20 episodes, something like that. So we've been doing it for a little over 20 weeks. And me and Savannah met, she just got hired at Capital. Honestly, it's all such a blur because 2020 was just such a weird time. Like I have no like scope of time when during that whole mess. We honestly met up with her late 2019, agreed that, you know, it was a good fit. We're going to hire, blah, blah, blah. And then somewhere through 2020, she got full-time hired, and I don't know when, but we started forming a friendship. And then kind of as COVID started like lifting, one of the times, we had been kind of building up this friendship and realizing we have similar styles of humor where we click really well. And we both have like this passion for like talking about pop culture and relation. Sometimes it's just pop culture to talk about pop culture. And then sometimes it's like pop culture in relation to like Christianity and like these really deep topics, and the way our trend, like the trends are going, and like how it applies to our morality, like just sharing really good conversation around these topics, like basically through the lens of these, you know, bites of media, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, we both really have a deep passion for that. We both really believe that we can do, you know, we have good personalities. It's a good fit for it. And we really want to take it somewhere. Hopefully one day, you know, it either gets picked up or, you know, we have plans to start a Patreon. Hopefully that, you know, will get supported. And
Yeah.
we talk about it a lot too, where it's just like, even if we didn't enjoy or even if we didn't get paid doing it, we love it so much that we would just keep doing it.
Oh, dude, I'm in the same. I mean, I have 2 podcasts now, and gonna start a third. It's like I just can't stop. I just enjoy it too much. You know what I mean? So I'm completely with you, and obviously the goal is to make something of this. But
Yeah.
I've had that same conversation with my wife. I said, hey, even if this doesn't turn into anything great or massive, I just love doing it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and I don't know about you, but it's almost like working out for me now, where like when you work out, it just feels good. It feels like you have all those endorphins, everything. It's the same thing with this. Like I love doing it. And if I miss it for a couple weeks, it's like, man, I just had that itch that needs to be scratched. Like I need to talk to people who don't really care about what I'm saying, but I just need to get the words out.
No, 100%.
So, yeah, but I love what you guys do, and that's when we first started kind of having conversations about, you know, you shared some information about your mics and the audio stuff.
Yeah,
I text you, I'm like, hey man, this is really dope. I think you guys have something really special because the dynamic between you guys is really solid, and you guys, it's obvious you guys have a passion for pop culture. In fact, I'll tell you this, my brother, who, as everybody knows, has been on the show multiple times, is a fan favorite for sure. He's a funny guy, and so, you know, I mentioned your podcast to him, and he listened to a couple episodes early on, and at one point we were talking. He's like, why do you listen to that show? And I'm like, I said, it's awesome, they're great. And he's like, no, I get that. He's like, you're old. Like, you don't even, do you get the references? I'm like, well, I'm learning, man. Like,
hey man, we try to welcome everybody into the fold, and honestly, like that's a real I think just in relation to that conversation, it's so hard to know like what's right, because, you know, we're both, me and Savannah, we're both pastors. We're trying to stay that makes it sound like we're like trying super hard, but like we're not trying to be relevant in terms of like, hey kids, notice us. Like that's not it. But like having engaging conversation that's like worth listening to, like that's like the relevant that we're talking about. And still like, you know, maintaining the integrity of who we are and making sure that our messages and are wholesome and like still like being true to who we are. It's such like a fine line of balance of just being like, hey, make what you're saying important and engaging while still being true to who you are and like your ideals, you know. And that's just it. We're not big, we're not huge, but we're still, this is like day one stuff, you know. It's stuff you have to talk about.
Oh yeah, no, that him saying that was definitely it was more of a comment about how old I am and out of touch with pop culture. He's like,
oh no, totally. It just brought up a good point. Yeah.
No, I get that for sure. But yeah, it made me laugh when he said that. It's like, yeah, you're right. Okay, I'll be honest. I was trying to play it off like I knew everything you guys were talking about. Some of the stuff I'm like, I feel, and we're not even that, like, there's not even that big of a gap between you and I.
Yeah, totally.
There's enough though. And I'm like, dang, some of the stuff, like I'm taking notes. Like if I'm having a conversation with someone who's younger than me, I'm going to mention that just to seem like I know what I'm talking about.
Totally.
But then some of it, like,
give me an example. Do you have an example of like one though?
Man, well, first of all, I'll say this: I hate reality TV shows. So TV, like just in general. So anytime you guys talk about that, I'm so out of the loop with that stuff. I'm like, I've heard of the show. I have no clue about any of that. But that's the thing I like about your podcast, though, is that you guys do span such a wide, a wide amount of topics that, like, some of the stuff I'm like, oh yeah, I connect with this for sure. I'm a huge fan of stand-up comedy. I'm a huge fan of hip hop, as we've discussed earlier. So like anytime you guys talk about those things, I'm like, this is my world. And then some of the reality TV show stuff is like, I don't know what they're talking about, but I'm going to try to learn because, it will help me in conversations. But and even your guys' opinions, that's what I love too, because you guys have different opinions from each other. And then even though like I'll have a different opinion from you guys, like for example, one of your earlier episodes, you guys were talking about Bo Burnham's special. I think if I remember correctly, you guys really enjoyed it. And
I liked it.
See, I have a bias. I don't care for stand-up comedians who do the music thing. So they're incredibly talented, but like it's just never vibed with me. So I'm like, it was cool. It was really well done and executed
Sure.
and well shot. But as far as like the comedy aspect of it,
Yeah.
and the entertainment, I mean, part of it wasn't necessarily meant to be super entertaining. I don't think.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was a different kind of special, and so, and maybe you wouldn't even categorize it as comedy, like a comedy special, and you know, but like I heard that's like, oh, that's an interesting perspective. And it helped me because, like I said, I kind of just wrote it off initially. I'm like, hey, he's kind of a music dude. I'm not going to enjoy this that much. When I heard you guys' podcast, I'm like, all right, maybe I'll go give it a shot and listen to it. And again, wasn't like crazy about it like you guys were, but I could appreciate some different aspects of it based on what you guys said ahead of time. You know what I'm saying?
You know, totally. I think that even with that too, like so many thoughts come to the surface too with that, because even like with what you just said, I agree with you totally. Actually, I haven't ever listened to any Bo Burnham stuff outside of that special. I kind of heard of him secondhand. And honestly, that's a big dynamic of our show. It's like Savannah will bring things to me that I typically won't be, you know, instinctually attracted to, like reality TV for one of them. And then I will do the same thing for her. Like I bring to the table like Marvel shows and like and movies and like hip hop stuff like that. Like a lot of it seems like a lot of times it's like guy girl stuff, and then sometimes we have overlap. Even with like the Bo Burnham stuff, like I felt like they kind of bait and like twisted it, whereas like it's supposed to be comedy, and it just hit me as such like a weird like look about humanity and what we're all going through. So anyway, all that aside, even like discussing topics is so hard because one, we cover such a wide variety that like, yeah, that's going to cast a wide net. And maybe there's going to be some initial buy-in from people be like, oh, they talked about the Bo Burnham thing. They talked about their favorite shows or movies or music or whatever. But then like, once we have these people, it's sometimes hard because it's like, yeah, like you said, the reality TV stuff, you kind of check out. So if I constantly go through my head of just like, yeah, I'm talking about what I want to talk about, and there's engaging things to discuss here. Like this last week or one of our episodes, we talked about like the Met Gala. I don't even know if we released this episode. Talked about the Met Gala, and I know in the back of my head, not everybody's going to care about the Met Gala. Like, so how do I make this interesting? How do I make this mass appeal, you know? But inherently some people are just going to tune out. So even having that in the back of my mind about how can we welcome all people and make them enjoy what we're even talking about week to week, you know?
Yeah, no, and you guys do a great job of that. Like I want to make that clear to everybody too.
Oh,
like,
thank you.
Yeah, no, when I talk about the reality TV show stuff, like I want to make that very clear. Like it's not my world. Like I don't know what you guys are talking about, but
sure,
you guys do make it interesting enough for me to stick around. It's not like I'm like, oh gosh, and then, you know, skip forward. It's like, all right, I want to hear what they have to say.
Sure.
I'm not going to watch the show they're talking about, but it's interesting. It's interesting what they're saying for sure. And, you know, that's something we've had, you know, conversations with about this podcast. Like your guys' focus is pop culture. Ours is like one step beyond that, where we have so many people from so many different backgrounds that the whole idea of connection is very, very broad. So
yeah,
we know for a fact that certain people are like, hey, this entrepreneurial stuff with these videographers and business owners is dope. I'm in for it. And then you have someone who's like an ultra runner, fitness person that like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to listen to this person, or, you know, however, whatever their interest is. But like you said, part of it is just like, this is what we love doing. We love talking about a bunch of different stuff. You know, hopefully it's fun for people. Hopefully they enjoy some of the dynamics and all that stuff. But I mean, that's the beauty of podcasting, right? Is like, you can really do anything. I mean, I'm a part of a couple of podcast groups, and some of these people, I'm like, how do you make a podcast out of that topic?
Yeah.
Like, why would anybody, like, you know, like, hey, our podcast is about horror movies that involve siblings. I'm like, what? What kind of
100%.
But people, there's like 100 people on that group. They're like, I would definitely listen to that. It's like, oh,
yeah,
okay. I guess that I was wrong. Who am I to judge their podcast?
Yeah, it almost feels like even like in the conversation of like taking something that you have, like for instance, your podcasts or mine, whatever, and like really hoping that someday it becomes something, you know. And I think that's like an even blend of like, we're putting forth our efforts of like, and my, you know, art, you talk about like anything that you create or your profession, what you're passionate about, whatever. It's like this even blend of like, hey, we're doing our due diligence of like improving the quality, having vision for the future, this duality of like, here's what we can do later and here's what we can do now. And like having these conversations. And then the other side of it is like, maybe your ticket just will get pulled, like sometimes it just feels like, hey, maybe the right person will listen and call you up one day and like be like, hey man, iHeart Radio wants to like sponsor your podcast, or Spotify wants to pick you up, or whatever, like, and that's just kind of like the whole aspect of like, you got to be a lot of bit very intentional and a little bit lucky, and then the rest of it's just kind of ambiguous. I don't know. That's how I feel about it.
Oh, that's great. I mean, this is just good life advice.
Yeah.
That was good.
I'm just now like randomly pontificating about life. I'm like, I'm not even trying to preach at anybody. It's just how I feel.
Hey man, it's all good. That's what we do on this podcast. It's like this roller coaster of topics.
Yeah.
It goes serious, and then it goes super goofy. But man, I had a question for you. I was gonna. Oh, so it seems like from the outside, looking at just social media and just basing it off social media, it seems like your podcast has been super well received by people. You guys have gotten pretty good feedback.
Yeah.
Well, hold on.
Josh, what are you doing? I feel like you're backing me into a corner. What are you doing here?
No, that was not the response I was expecting, but I'm glad you did that, because it feels like there's a story behind that, and maybe it hasn't been as well received as I thought.
No, I should say, just to be totally transparent, it has been really well received. I think too, like, I think conversations that we have are inherently just secular in nature. You know what I mean? And it's such a hard balance finding the, I don't know how open you guys are with like, behind the scenes personal stuff about like your lives or whatever. For me, like I'm a pastor at a church. I hope that's okay to say.
Yeah.
And so is my co-host, we're both pastors. And so, there's the whole conversation about like being in the world, not of the world. You know what I mean? So how far can we wade into these conversations about, like one of the topics that we talked about was like OnlyFans, banning pornography and then reallowing it. And then we try to have like a meaningful conversation around like, what does the over sexualization of our society do for our young people? And like, what does that look like? What are the ramifications of that? And, handle that in a way with delicacy. But, sometimes these conversations can be, just a lot to consume at one time, for a lot for people to consume, nobody has said this. I'm creating a hypothetical, but somebody might be like, well, why are two pastors talking about porn? That for some people, that's a real issue. So I didn't mean to give off any false narratives when I respond to your question. It has been well received. We've gotten very good positive feedback. We have people who are constantly encouraging us and telling us that they love our dynamic and they love what we do. I think we're always just having these conversations internally amongst me and Savannah, and we're trying to be really open with our leadership, our senior pastor and all these people, about saying like, how can we honor you? How can we honor the body of people that we're serving and still maintain like a level of like engaging conversation, still having meaningful conversation about what's happening in our world, because that's really how we feel about it. Like these things are happening like today, if we do talk about it, they're still going to happen. If we don't talk about it, they're still going to happen. And we never want to cross that boundary of like, we're being of the world. We're just being in it. You know what I mean? Like so many levels to this whole thing. There's some very real boundaries that we have to respect. And so we're just trying to do that the best way we can.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think you guys do a great. Like, I'm gonna keep saying that. Like I said, I'm a fan of what you guys are doing. So
thank you.
I'm not just saying that because you're here. I really do think what you guys are doing is pretty sweet. So
thank you, man.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, because that's not. I mean, to be completely honest, that's not the world that this podcast operates in. So a lot of the stuff that you guys have to consider is nothing that maybe I should consider. I just don't like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like,
hey, dude,
press record, hope for the best. You know what I'm saying?
Say all the things, bro. Don't hold anything back.
Yeah, it's not really my personality. But that being said, like it's it's just different for us. Like we don't have, we're not tied to the same things that you guys are, especially when it comes to like what you guys do, you know, as pastors. We're just operating in a little bit of a different lane. Obviously we don't go wild on this show, you know what I mean?
Sure.
We've said, like, people say some stuff, like, especially when my brother and I got on the same podcast, it's like, hey, you know what? Maybe did we forget we were recording? Why did we say that? You know what I mean? Yeah. A little too free.
Yeah. No, and dude, 100%. That, like, my humor. I think we share a little bit of, similar humor.
Sure.
And I think too, like, I think just truly, when you boil it down, I could say something and mean nothing by it, truly nothing. Like, I could say just the wildest thing or say something offbeat or off color and really mean nothing by that. And for some people, that really does mean something, even if my intent wasn't. It's all about, like, a matter of, like, perspective and like how people consume or intake information. So, like, even if I didn't mean anything by it, it could mean something to somebody else. And how that reflects, I think it all just comes down to, like, being a pastor too, like making sure that, you're living above reproach and, like, honoring God and all these things. And even if, like, how I honor God is, by being my true self and authentic, sometimes that means, sacrificing a little bit of that so everybody can be welcome and, having a spirit of reconciliation. Now I'm, like, getting into pastor mode. I don't want to, I'm trying not to. I just am like, I think I can be silly and make jokes and really just, and then go preach a message, you know what I mean? And just be like a pastor and really not have any differentiating things. Cause, like, I don't mean anything by it. And that's just, like, something I got to sacrifice so that I can still be a pastor. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, obviously I give Deb a hard time, but she's obviously, I started one podcast. We did over 120 episodes together, and we're like, hey, let's do this podcast together as well. So obviously I enjoy her company. She's a great friend. But, I'm sure if she was on here, she would say something similar because she is a high school teacher.
Yeah.
And so we had some conversations early on, like, what information do you want out there? Like, do you want the name of your school out there? Do you want them to know that you're, what I mean, all the, like, what level you teach at and all this other stuff. So I know for her, she even has to be a little bit more careful about what she says because she knows that she's a teacher. And so, people are going to view things a certain way and can potentially twist things in weird ways. So, it is an interesting thing. And it's just like with, what I have had conversations with about people who do music.
Yeah.
There's this weird balance between, okay, you're an artist, you want to express yourself, you want to express the ideas that you have in the most real, authentic way possible, because that's what people are going to, connect with. But at the same time, you're also trying to sell records.
Yeah.
And if you're saying wild stuff that, half your audience is not going to agree with or not going to like, then that's going to, one, it's not going to connect with them. They're going to automatically turn it off and just disregard what you're saying for the entirety of your album. And then two, it's going to affect your record sales. So there is this weird balance you have to find, whether you're a podcaster. I mean, really any kind of art. I think you have to find a balance, or you've just got to go hard one way and just accept. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, hey, I'm going to be my real authentic self. I know it's going to make people mad. My true fans will vibe with it, or say, hey, I'm trying to sell my art, and I'm going to kind of tuck my real self away because I need the money. And I just got to do it. So it's an interesting thing for sure.
I think that if you are, because I pride myself on being authentic. I truly do. Like, I try to tell people, like, who I am as a pastor, who I am on stage, who I'm off stage in my private life. I try my hardest. I fail, obviously, sometimes, but I try to make that the same person across the board. I really do. And the struggle for me truly is because I love comedy. Like, I feel like I'm a jokester. Like, I know how to make people laugh.
Yeah.
And I know I can spin something crazy in my head and I know it's going to make somebody laugh. And sometimes I just have to bite my tongue. And again, sometimes I fail. Sometimes I fall short of that. Yeah. But sometimes I have to bite my tongue because I'm just like, I know this will not be beneficial long-term. Yeah, this person will laugh right now. Yeah. But long-term, they might view me a different way, or like that might come back to haunt me. You know what I mean? Right. And 100%, like, I think that I saw this quote online, or I saw this video of somebody like talking about this, where I think, do you know who Gary Vee is?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was like, he literally was like talking about how like he swears a lot and like he just uses curse words in like everyday language. And somebody was like questioning, like, why do you do this? Why do you do this? And he talked about authenticity. And he was like, I believe I'm being authentic. And if me being that authentic causes consequences, I'm willing to accept the ramifications that comes with that. And it's similar but different. It's not about like I'm not trying to be authentic or I'm not willing to accept the consequences. I just don't want to cause a long-term issue or hurt or like ruin my witness, if you want to be Christianese about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. It's something. I mean, I think it's in my opinion, it's just wisdom, right? Like
100%.
You've got to think about, I mean, even on here, we joke about it. It's like you feel like sometimes you get behind the mic and you're like, I can just say whatever I want and they got to deal with it. But then you really think about it, it's like, no, our goal is to connect people and connect with people and help them to, get connected with each other and maybe bring some ideas or thoughts to light, that they maybe never thought of. And so in order to do that, you do have to, I think share things a certain way or maybe not, be, like I said, there's the way I joke off mic is very different than, you know what I mean? It's not a bad thing. It's just,
it's just wisdom. Like you said, it's just wisdom.
Yeah. I mean, again, going to the comedy thing, and this is where I told you before, we tend to go on tangents, man. I don't want to keep you.
No, I'm great.
But like my favorite's Dave Chappelle. He's my favorite.
Loved me some Dave Chappelle. Oh my gosh.
He's the best, whether it's his old stuff, which is incredible, his newer stuff, which is different, but still incredible to me.
Come on, Josh. I'm
a huge fan, but see, then like most people, I think if you love comedy, you love Dave Chappelle. I'm not going to say I'm a huge fan of this guy, but he interests me and I find some of the stuff funny. Anthony Jeselnik. Like,
I don't think I've ever even heard of him.
Oh, dude. If he's one of those. So the name of one of his most recent specials was Fire in the Maternity Ward.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty dark.
Yeah.
He's just he's a very dark comic. Dark comic. He's got a very sharp, biting tone to it.
Like shock value kind of.
Yeah. And he's got a very like specific style, but like the way he does it, he's very, the delivery is very surgical. It's like he has like a setup, and then it's like this hard right. It's like, oh, wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Like I said, he's not one of my favorites, but like I'm just interested by the way he does his thing.
Yeah.
But again, he's also one of those guys that's very dark, very, very much so, where he knows his audience and he knows he's going to make people mad. And it's like, all right, this is my lane in the world. But
100%.
Comedy is we could talk about this for a whole episode. Maybe we'll have to have you back on, man, and talk.
I would love it. I would love
comedy, because I think that's an interesting thing, because we've talked about all these things about how you have to, be wise in the things that you share to communicate your message. Comedy is a little bit different, because you're also trying to provoke, not everybody, but like you might have like a Nate Bargatze, right? He's clean, right? He's a clean comic. He's going to provoke, but not in the same way. He's going to make fun of Starbucks drinks and, but then you have someone like Dave Chappelle who's going to offend, one side of the spectrum. And then 5 minutes later, he's going to offend the other side. Yeah. And, it's a weird line, but that's part of what they do. In my opinion, that's part of what they do.
No, totally. I think with any kind of comedy, whatever style you have, I think there's an element of surprise, like if I think like it's the opposite of like music, like something that is like with music, you create patterns and like you think of something that's like catchy and what's coming next. And that's what you like about that song. But if someone's telling you like a knock joke, chances are you've heard it before, the pattern, the setup, unless it's just some super dark, shock value comedy. But like, that's what makes things funny, is like, you don't know where and that's what I love of like my style of comedy, is like, I'm going to try and paint a picture that you couldn't imagine, but is somehow relatable. I'm going to bring it back, or like take you on a journey, like with my vocabulary, and then bring it back to something that is like, how is this weirdly making sense? You know what I mean? And that shock value is like funny, but like, it gets me in trouble sometimes, man. Like the surprise is good, but like, oh my gosh. That's why, did you ever watch Middleditch and Schwartz? their improv stuff?
No, I haven't seen it.
Do you know who Ben Schwartz is?
Yeah.
Okay. Josh, I'm not kidding when I say I laughed harder at this than I probably, because I'm not even
Really?
like huge into improv comedy. Not at all. Like I don't like seek it out, but somebody recommended it to me. So I watched it, and there's 3 episodes, which are an hour long. And they talk to the crowd. They're like, give us a situation. And they give you like a contextual setup. And dude, I'm crying because I'm laughing so hard. Oh my God. It's so fun. You have to watch it. Seriously. Go watch it.
Okay. I'll check it out for sure. No, I'm always in for a good laugh. So I'll definitely check that out, man. Have you ever thought about doing or trying your hand at stand-up?
So if I wasn't a pastor, maybe that's what I'm saying. Like, I think there's different schools of thought. I really do.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm going to come back to your answer to your question. I think there's different schools of thought, and this is the context I'm saying. I really do believe this, that a joke can mean nothing. I really believe that because, I've heard a couple different people in life say, there's a little truth to every joke. I really, really don't buy that. I don't buy it at all. Maybe if you've been in like a toxic relationship or something where somebody's just being really passive aggressive, then maybe.
Sure.
But like I could say, this is just kind of a joke that I made at my co-host Savannah the other day. I had to tell her something quick. And so I stepped into her office and I literally just said to her, hey, I got to make this quick because I'm really busy and I hate you. And I just like sat down and she just like laughed. She was like, okay, what's up? Yeah. Obviously, that's like a clear example. Like, don't hate her, really enjoy her company.
Shock value.
Exactly.
Shock value. Yeah.
But I do think that if Dave Chappelle has made like rape jokes at certain points. Does he endorse that
joke? Yeah.
Yeah. Does he endorse that? No. If you sat him down and like put a gun to his head, there's no way he's endorsing any malicious acts.
Right.
But like people don't believe that. To your thing about stand-up, one, I'd be terrified out of my mind because I already get nervous preaching messages, but like when you're trying to inspire people, they want to be inspired. But if you're trying to make people laugh, they're against you in the beginning.
Like arms crossed. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And like, you gotta ooze confidence. Yeah. And if you want to be clean, it's even harder because people like want a little bit of dark or crass humor.
Right.
It's just like, I feel like the cards are already stacked against me and I already play off of like what people say. So that's more of an interactive comedy. Stand-up would be petrifying to me.
Oh, dude, I would be terrified. I would be terrified because I've given like, athletic team talks for 5 to 15 minutes. And those are that amount of time. Once you have something you've got, down, it's not that bad. Right. Like sometimes 15 minutes is like, dang, I only have 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Stand up, like you have a 5-minute set. 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Is an eternity, especially if you bomb at like right off the bat. And it's like, you're just up there and you feel it. And then the tension builds up. I've been to 100%. Like Punchline plenty of times where the opening acts, like Rachel and I went on a Thursday.
Is Punchline the old Sack place?
No, it's the one on it's by Arden Fair Mall.
Okay. I've been to the comedy club in Old Sack. So I kind of get what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I love going to Punchline, but it's we went on a Thursday night one time. Thursday night crowd. It's like, again, this is a different podcast. It's like those jokes people make about like a strip club, right? You go like during the day to a strip club, different crowd than at nighttime, like on a Saturday night. Same thing here. It's like there's like very few people in the crowd, and I hate. It's always makes me feel bad for the comic when at one point when it's just going horrible, they're like, "You guys still with me?" Like, hey man, that's not good. It's not good.
Like in like a different universe, it's like when pastors are like, amen. I'm like, dude, if you're calling for amens, clearly you're bombing. Like nobody's with you. Like, and so, I mean, you could get into different denominations. They don't amen typically or whatever. But like I went to a club one time, a comedy club. And, I mean, typically the structure of these nights are like, the opening acts, the middle acts. The opening act's typically bad. The middle act's all right. And then the headliner is just like funny. That's how it goes.
Right.
And the opening act guy is like, he'll say a joke and be like, y'all having a good time? And it's like, yeah. He's like, are you like, yeah, and it's like, oh, oh, buddy, like I want, and I get secondhand embarrassment so bad. So like I
in that situation.
Oh, brutal. Dude, it's like, get me out of this place because I feel so bad for this guy. Oh my gosh. Oh. And then if somebody heckles, I'm just like, oh, bro, please, like leave this guy alone, please.
Well, that's what you hear all the time from comics. So like it's brutal when the heckler is funnier than the opening act of the feature. It's like, oh, like they actually made the crowd laugh, and the opening act's just standing up there like what do I do? It's brutal. Well, it's also bad too when they get into it with the heckler. Yeah. And then you can tell it's not like a fun back and forth. It's like, oh, you're taking this like this is turned into like a mean roast. Like you're trying to, and you're not winning either. So
dude, there was when I went, I never have seen such a clear disparity in like skill level. Like the first, there was a drunk like group in like the back corner, and they weren't even necessarily heckling. They were just, it was like one of their buddies' birthdays or something like that. So just, I'm not joking, dead center of like somebody's set, they'd be like, it's my buddy's birthday. And like, just shout it like what, because that's not even like a back and forth. You can't riff off that. It's like, what are you supposed to do? Right. So the middle guy, the guy who's like up second, basically just goes, he literally is like, I don't effing care. Let me get back to my set. And he just kind of snaps back into that set. The headliner, who has had so much experience with comedy, he did the same thing to that guy, and he just kind of took that energy and like redirected it and made the crowd laugh, and he made fun of them, but not too hard. And it was just like, oh, this guy's a professional. Like he knew exactly. It was like watching a martial artist, like where, if somebody goes to strike you, he kind of redirects the energy and like pushes it back on you. I was so impressed, and I was like, this guy's legit. And the other guy didn't know what to do. Oh man, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome way of putting it. It is a lot like a martial artist just doing their thing, like a martial arts pro versus someone who's got their white belt. Like it's two completely different things.
100%.
Even some of those guys, even a white belt might be a little generous. It's like just someone on the street trying to fight for the first time. Like it's,
100%.
Yeah, it's not good, but at the same time, it's fun to talk about. That means that I never want to do it. It's not my thing. There's no way.
If somebody put me on the spot, I'm more like I said, I'm better in like playing off the energy in the room, like I can create funny, but not from nothing, like, oh my gosh, it'd be so hard. Dude, I would put my life and soul into that thing. And dude, I've even gone up on stage at church, like where I'm doing just the transition or like the hosting of the service or whatever. And I'll make a joke to the 9 a.m. and 9 a.m. is typically, like a little bit of an older crowd. Yeah. And, I'll be like, I'll make a joke and I'm like, yeah, you out there? And they're like, and I'm like, oh my God, the energy, you're sapped. Everything that the wind is out of your sails. I'm like, oh dude, get me off stage right now. And I'm just like, I bombed.
It's the worst. Yeah. It's not
totally.
Yeah. Not a great feeling, but what can you do at the end of the day? You got to throw your hands up. It's like, hey,
pick back up, try again next time.
Again.
Yep. 100%. That's
awesome. Hey, so like I said, man, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I do want to touch on this one thing. I think it's worth talking about just real quick. Like I mentioned and joked about kind of at the beginning of this whole thing, you being a male fitness model.
Dude, oh my gosh.
Hey man, I saw the comments. People were impressed. I was impressed too, man. Like you've had a massive physical transformation. It sounds like a lot of it had to do with the pandemic and because of that and some of the results or what you were seeing physically, you just didn't like. And so you just made the decision, hey, I'm going to start getting in better shape. And then you posted a picture a few weeks ago and crazy, like a side-by-side picture and insane, dude. So like,
oh, thank you.
Just real quick, like how has that been? How's it going? And like, I'm sure that people have responded to it in a way of like, hey, I want to do the same thing. I'm sure it's inspired people to start their own fitness journey. So just tell us a little bit about that before we get out of here.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for saying all those very nice things. I think for me, like I've always struggled with my weight. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I always make the joke. I feel like I'm like Kelly Clarkson out here because as far as her weight journey goes, it's like a roller coaster, man. You see her one day and she's doing good. Next day, maybe not. And I feel like that's me.
I'm sorry. I can't unsee that now. Like every time I see you,
dude,
if I see previous pictures of you, it's like, oh, it's Kelly Clarkson.
I'm telling you.
It's weird. Sorry. I don't want to cut you off, but
go ahead. No, go ahead.
It's funny because I've never, and I really mean this, like,
yeah,
obviously, like we said, we're not connected super well, but like we've seen each other, we rub shoulders quite a bit. I've never, like, in my mind, I don't see you as a naturally big guy, but everything you've shared on your posts and stuff, it sounds like you are a naturally bigger guy. That's true.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing. A lot of this is so subjective. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And again, I make the joke about Kelly Clarkson, and even in relation to who I am, I'm not trying to body shame anybody. I really think that a lot of this comes from like personal acceptance and like just being comfortable in your own skin. And that's what it came down to for me. In terms of like me being a bigger guy, I've always been like the fat kid, when I was younger. I weighed like 200 plus pounds since I've been in like 6th grade. Like I come from a home where it was like, I was actually just talking about this with my wife when we were on our way home. Nobody really taught me like healthy eating habits. My dad was more of a helpful influence with that. And I moved in with him when I was in high school. So by the time I hit like my sophomore year, I kind of started to trim down, but it's always been one of those constant. I don't have the natural body type. I know, Cole, a shared friend of ours, dude can eat whatever he want and it would melt off of him. Dude, no weight ever stuck to that dude.
Sure.
And I never had a body like that, And so, I don't have the worst genetics in the world, like my metabolism is fine, but you put together months and months of bad eating and no real exercise. And it eventually adds up. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I was like I said, I can never really figure out my goals. Like that was like a really big thing too. Like I've lifted weights, but never really eaten good. Never really eaten good. I do podcasts.
We accept all grammar on here. It's all good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, welcome. I do podcasts, so that's great.
I do too. I stumble over my words all the time. Like, well, it's like I had a stroke in the middle of my sentence.
Dude, I know. It's like Windows is just shutting down in my brain. Yeah. I lifted weights, but I didn't couple that with like good eating. So I was just kind of like, one of those like puffy dudes who's like, oh, you probably lift weights, but like, your shirt's really tight around your waist. It's like you've seen people like that.
Yeah.
And then, I went on this journey in 2019 where I actually tore my ACL, and I just from playing basketball, like just randomly one night tore my ACL, had to get surgery.
Really?
And like leading up to that point, I was like really into like weight loss. Like I wasn't really lifting a ton of weight, but I was like, really focused on like cardio and more the weight loss journey. And when I lost or when I got my ACL surgery, that kind of put my body in like rehab mode. So it all kind of hyper focused me into this really skinny spot. So my typical weight is around 200. And like, I was pushing like 215 when I was really lifting like heavy. I dropped down to 170, Josh. I was down.
Wow.
I was down like 50 pounds. Like at the start of that journey, I wasn't lifting at all. I weighed 230. I dropped down to 170. I lost 60 pounds. And I was like, I'm not joking. I looked like I was receiving chemo treatments on the side. Like I was bone thin, seriously.
Dang. Yeah.
And that was like something I took pride in, but everybody told me I looked like sick, and I didn't. It kind of had this like body dysmorphia built up in my head about what I should look like.
Right.
And so then 2020 hits. I can't work out anymore. Gyms are closed, blah, blah, blah. Nobody needs an explanation about how we all go through. We all went through a mental difficulty. Like I fell into a depression, anxiety, no desire to, you talk about weights or working out, no desire to create anything, no desire to pursue any endeavors. Like I just was like a bump on a log, truly. DoorDash was the best friend. We ordered food almost every single day, and it was just junk food all the time, rotating door.
Sure.
And so I went from 170 all the way back up to like 203 and just put on like 33 pounds. And so by the time COVID started lifting up, my birthday my birthday's the last day in February. It's February 28th. And I vowed to myself March 1st, I'm going to hit it. And so I started working out with my brother-in-law, Sam. He's a personal trainer here locally. And he actually helped me through my initial weight loss back when I was doing more weight loss stuff. And he was just like, no problem, we'll get you where we need to go. And he just, put me through the grinder. He knew it was going to be tough. I knew it was going to be tough. Gave me a meal plan. So I started coupling that with like healthier eating. This is really like the first time I've like kind of joined all the forces together, eating good, vitamins, sleep schedule, like all the tracking macros, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And not even to bore anybody with this, but like I tried to like take a little bit. It wasn't even just a thirst trap pic. Like I tried to post that picture and just be like, hey, listen, if you've ever wondered if you can do this, it's totally a feasible goal. And you might be thinking to yourself like, hey, 5 months, 4 months, 3 months, or whatever down the road is a really long time. And I don't even know if I could be committed for that long. 3 months is going to come and go. It's either going to be that you've done nothing or you've done something. And that's not even like harsh reality. It's just fact. Right. And if you're wondering if you could do that, you could figure out your macros, how many calories you're supposed to eat in a day, and accomplish that with like decent amount of exercise. You absolutely can achieve like body results. It was more for me just about like feeling comfortable in my own skin, feeling confident when I take my shirt off, like something as simple as that. I think that like I tried to pretend like that wasn't important to me, but like, hey, when I take my shirt off to go like be around my wife or like be in the like on the beach, like it's important for me to just feel confident in myself.
Sure.
And whatever that looks like for anybody, I'm like, dude, we all can do this. And now I'm not even trying to be one of those annoying guys that's like telling people what to eat, because live your own life, do your own choices. But I'm like, hey, if you want something, I want you to feel like you can do it too, So in a little bit of a nutshell, that was just it for me, is like, I want to do this, and I want people to feel however they get there, even if it's not by my conventional methods. You could do it, like feel inspired, feel accomplished or driven, whatever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it is funny, because I think there are there's some people that will say, oh, like you said, here's this thirst trap picture that he posted. But the funny thing is, there are a ton of people though that will really be inspired by that, because they may be in the very similar mental state, a very similar physical state that whoever's posting the picture was in. And they're like, oh, it just gives that little inspiration that could potentially get them started, right? It's not gonna be the thing that keeps them going necessarily, but it will give them the inspiration. It's like, hey, maybe I can do it too, and then it can potentially start them on that journey. So I think it's huge, man. I'm glad you posted that. For anybody in that situation, I think that'd be huge. So if you're listening to this and you feel like you're trying to get started on that fitness journey, go check out Trent's page, check out the picture, give it a like, bro. Save it, whatever you want to do.
Drive that traffic to my thirst trap pick, bro, please.
Well, let me ask you this, because obviously when you hear people go on these crazy fitness journeys, there's always there's like 3 or 4 levels of people noticing the change, right? It's people you haven't seen forever, maybe coworkers who you see often but not all the time, and then family who you see often. At what point did your wife start noticing the change? Because obviously you see her every day. Like how many months, or at what point of that whole journey did she say like, oh dang, you look different?
So it's so weird to process that question, only because it's like dual fold, like obviously we have all the normalcies of like a marriage, like we share intimate moments, which is like, that's the most vulnerable that you can be. And like, you see somebody in their raw form.
Sure.
But that's also coupled with the fact that you see me every day. So like when you see someone every single day, and if you are being consistent and your body is making like these incremental changes, small, but consistent, subconsciously, that person who is also seeing you every day is going, like, it's like their subconscious will pick up on that, but it's not like they're going to register like changes are being made. So if my wife was randomly in a coma for 3 months, of course she'd wake up and be like, oh my gosh, you look great. But because she's actively engaging with me, it wasn't so much like this grand reveal. She actually noticed when I took that picture. Like I showed her those pictures before I posted it.
Really?
And she was like, oh my gosh, like that's amazing. Like she congratulated me. It was very, supportive. It was like, oh, like good for you. All these are very kind words. but like it wasn't. And even honestly, Josh, I'm being completely honest with you. I feel like I'm the normal amount of like vain. Like I obviously check myself out in the mirror after I've worked out, blah, blah, blah. Sure. But like seeing those things, seeing those pictures for myself was like edifying. Like, yeah, you think that you're making these big leaps and bounds and you're like, yeah, I'm seeing this, but you know, like we all kind of hype ourselves up to be better in the mirror than we actually are. So seeing that through like an actual photo was edifying for me even, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that made me want to keep going. Like it's those things that's like, oh, I'm making progress. I'm doing it. I want to keep going. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That makes a lot of sense. And that's so interesting. I wasn't expecting that answer to be what it was, where it's like when she saw the picture,
yeah,
that's when she noticed. So any dude who's out there who's listening to this, if you want that to be sped up a little bit, just don't let your wife or significant other see you without a shirt until you're ready. You know what I'm saying?
Baggy clothes, bro. Sweatpants, hoodies, all of that, bro.
And then you look in the mirror, and it's like, it's time. It's time to unveil this bad boy. And then you got to hope for the best. If you haven't put enough work in,
100%,
it may be disappointing. It's like, look what I got here. And it's like, okay,
nice.
What else does it do with this? Yeah.
Dude, the other real practical side of that is like the picture that I took was right after a workout. I'm not walking around like that. Like I feel like somebody posted this on like an Instagram reel or something like this, where they showed like hey, right after a pump and then like what they're walking around at. And those are so different, you know, like your body just enlarges when you're like lifting weights. So yeah, like that was great. And like it served its purpose. But you know, if I just took my shirt off right now and started doing this podcast without a shirt on, I wouldn't look like that. It'd be the camera. There's so many factors that play into this. So
yeah,
it's all that to say my eating wasn't perfect. My sleep wasn't perfect. I missed some days in the gym, like scheduling conflicts, whatever. It's just like drops in the bucket of being consistent. Go so far. Start today. Don't think about the time it's going to take. Eventually you're going to lose track of how long it's been. You're going to look back and be like, oh my gosh, I made so much progress.
Yeah, I agree. I also want to point out, I feel like people listening to this got really excited when you mentioned potentially taking your shirt off on this podcast. Like,
you're so dumb.
Like, wait a minute.
No,
that's when they switch from the audio only. It's like, I'm listening on Apple Podcasts. Hold on, pause everything. Let me switch to YouTube real quick just to see did you really do it?
No, bro. Hey, listen, first of all, I'm white as a ghost. And second of, I have not tanned. And second of all, I haven't shaved up in a while. So I'm growing in my winter coat, bro. I gotta trim up a little bit.
Hey man,
that's another thing, bro. It's amazing what a shaver will do. I'll tell you what, it'll make you look so slender. You gotta that's a big tip. Shave it up.
I don't have that issue, man. Like I'm half Japanese, like facial hair. Like it doesn't really grow in very much. Like it's kind of like anytime I've let it grow out a little bit on my face, it's like Joe Dirt. It's like, does it grow in all white trash like that? Like this spot right here, there's just nothing. It's like a little island of no hair. So I gotta
so
keep
jealous.
It shaved.
I'm so jealous.
Yeah, man.
I swear I almost have enough chest hair to where it's like, it would be appropriate for me to have a giant gold necklace just resting in the chest hair. I'm telling you, it's a weekly thing, Josh. I'm not joking.
Seriously.
I'm Greek. Greek.
Oh, the natural sweater.
Oh, dude. Yeah. And I have to beg my wife, babe, please. If it's summer season, it's like a regular thing. Winter is less important, but I'm like, babe, please help me shave my back. I know it's not pretty. It's not one of the jobs you signed up for. Please help me look like a summer hottie, because if I walk out with back hair, nobody likes that. Come on.
It just, that might be the clip I use for this podcast. I like that.
Dude. Oh God. Hey, do it, bro.
Yeah. Maybe we can get you that Manscaped, podcast sponsorship.
Oh my, please. I need sponsors for my podcast. Please.
It makes sense.
Manscaped. I don't know. What are some other ones? Squarespace, please sponsor me, bro.
Cash App. I feel like that's what I was talking to my brother about. I feel like there's certain, because I've listened to podcasts for like 10 years now. There's certain sponsorships that if you get these sponsorships, like you're a real podcaster. Like if you get the MeUndies sponsorship,
oh my gosh, bro,
game over. Please. That means you're in the club. MeUndies, Casper mattresses,
Raycon, headphones, or like
stamps.com.
Stamps, or what's it called? What's the language service?
Oh,
It's not Rosetta Stone, but it's the other one.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. What is it
It's
called?
not Duolingo.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't remember.
No, but you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Squarespace, all those kinds of ones. MeUndies
Like
is a huge one.
Roman hymns. That's a different podcast. Like if you start going that direction, your audience is
or
probably
like
a little
Blue
older.
Chew. Yep, 100%. Oh
Blue
my
Chew.
gosh.
Hey, you know what? I'll just be honest. It's not an issue for me, but I would take them as a sponsorship. You know what I mean?
Why not?
That's
Why not?
People are out there. They need Blue Chew. It's all good.
There are people out there who need that. I'm not going to deny them. Are they going to sponsor somebody else? 100%. Might as well be me.
That's what I'm saying.
I will wear Blue Chew. If you're listening, I will wear Blue Chew shirts. You send me the stuff. What are we talking about?
Hey guys, he's open. So you got Blue Chew, you have Manscaped. These just make too much sense.
Yeah.
So
100%.
All right. We'll make it happen one of these days.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll make it happen one of these days. So that being said, it's instead of trying to get all these sponsorships, our last question that we have for you, we ask all our guests this because, like I said, our goal is to get people more connected and to help them, connect with different people, different brands, organizations. If it's a local restaurant, whatever it may be,
Sure.
Give us one person, brand, organization that you feel like we should be connected with besides your own podcast.
I was gonna say the juice
Doesn't count.
Let me see. Oh, here's one. Seriously.
Yeah.
Sammy Gifford Fitness. It's the guy who he is a personal trainer. He wants to open a gym. You can find him at Sammy Gifford Fitness, SAMMY. Let me just pull up Instagram really quick. He's my brother-in-law. Yeah, I'm biased 100%, but he's
Perfect.
now 2 times gotten me in better shape than I know what to do with. So SAMMY GIFFORD. He posts videos all the time, inspirational content, what we do on the daily. So like workouts, if you want to follow them, if you have the necessary equipment that you do at home, great resource. Love the guy to death. He is such an amazing dude. And most incredible trainer I've ever had.
I love it. Perfect. Make sure you guys go follow Sammy. And then where can they follow you? Where can they follow the juice? All those things.
So my name is at Trent Ellerman, TRENTELLERMAN. That's pretty much my name on every handle. I don't really use Twitter. Instagram's probably the best.
Okay.
The juice, you can follow my co-host Savannah Carreno. I'll let you figure that one out. But then the juice is the Juice Edit, and it's got a big old orange logo with the juice. It's pretty easy to find as well. And then for our podcast, it's just the Juice. And I'm not going to lie to you, there's 1,000 The Juices podcasts. We're probably near the top.
Sure.
But please find us. My name's in there. Savannah's name's in there. It's giant. It's orange. You can't miss it.
You can't miss it. So make sure you guys go listen, especially if you're a fan of pop culture and everything pop culture related, or if you're just looking for a fun time, a good laugh. Make sure you check out their podcast because it is awesome. And I want to say this too. The thing I appreciate about what you guys do is that you guys are consistent. Like that's been the thing for us. Like when we said, hey, we're going to drop an episode every week, we've missed one time because of some different circumstances, but like we're committed to dropping that every week. Yeah. As a podcast lover, I hate it when someone starts a podcast that I love and then you don't hear from them for like 3 months. Yeah, because they decided to stop doing episodes or they decided not to be consistent. So you don't have to worry about that with the Juice. They're super consistent, and you won't be disappointed when you check them out. So make sure you guys do that. Make sure you guys follow us at Connectable Podcast on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, and then Connectable Pod on Twitter. And check us out on all the streaming platforms. We would definitely appreciate that. And I just want to say this, man. Last thing before we get out of here, I want to make this one last thought, just to put it in your mind.
Sure.
Just a thought. If in this podcast, these podcast relationships that we're in, if we both get divorced one day,
oh my gosh, this took a turn. Yeah,
you leave your podcast host, I leave mine. I don't think it's going to happen. For you guys seem pretty strong. Deb and I don't know. It depends on the day. I'm just saying, man, we can make this a podcast. I think this would be a good podcast partnership. Not that I'm wishing this to happen. I hope both healthy, happy podcast relationships. But if it, I'm just saying stuff happens.
Hey man, if I'll handle it like I'll handle it like women in their early 30s. If they're single by 40, then we'll get married. Or like, you hear those couples that are like, hey, if we're single by 40, we'll just hook up. If one day something happens to me and my podcast host, we'll have to link up and do content together. And honestly, man, it's been a blast. I'd love to be a guest again. If you ever need somebody to fill a spot, I'd love to do it. And it's been a pleasure, for real. Thanks again.
Thank you, man. It's been an awesome time. I lied. I'm going to say one more thing.
Okay.
I know. I'm sorry. I have one more shot at Deb because it wouldn't be a normal week if I didn't. So I know for a fact that Deb reached out to you about being a guest on the show.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, it'd be cool. We have some stuff to figure out. And then she never heard back from you. I text you one time and you're like, what time do you want to do it? Deb,
sure.
I don't want to say that I'm more influential than you or that Trent likes me more. But I mean, the response time speaks for itself.
Oh my gosh. Can I speak to that? Or are we just cutting there? Is that just the cut?
No, you can. It's not gonna make a difference, but you can.
Okay. When she was talking about it, I thought, maybe I assumed wrong, but I thought that she was talking about having both me and Savannah be on the podcast.
She was.
And if honestly, like now that I know the format, if this is the format where it's like we all jump on a Zoom together and maybe it's like, we're all in our 4 different like Punnett squares or whatever. Yeah. That's super easy. I thought we were going to have to figure out like the technical side of like cameras and mics. And we've advanced to a place where that's totally possible. And we could make that happen too. Either any which way, we're good now. Deb. Yes, Deb. But I do like Josh more. I'm sorry.
Perfect. I was like, that was too nice. I'm definitely cutting that out. Like that was bull crap. Like, I'm not including that. It's like, okay.
Deb, I love Deb a lot. I really do. We went to a missions trip together. Got lots of love for Deb, but Josh, we're day ones. I'm sorry. Nothing beats that.
Yeah. Day ones that don't really know each other that well, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
But the inception was there first. So like the
Good
genesis of our friendship was there first. So by that metric, we're day ones.
I'll take it. You hear that, Deb? She did not. She's not going to listen to this. So, all right, man. We'll see you guys later.
Take care.
Thanks for watching the show. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button to get a new episode every week. We'll see you next time on the Connectable podcast.